Joining me on the channel today is G.F. Miller, author of Glimpsed. It's a YA novel about a teen who is a fairy godmother who makes other people's deepest desires come true. And it's out January 5th from Simon & Schuster. Welcome, Glinka.
Thanks so much for having me on the show, Carly.
I always like to start at the beginning and explore your path to becoming a published author. What kind of kid were you?
Well, to be honest, I kind of skewed morose. Yeah, I don't remember being super outgoing, except that I was really blessed with a couple of just great friends. And I think that with my friends, I was able to be more creative and outgoing than I ever would have been on my own. So I just remember my best friend Carrie and I had entire worlds in our backyards, and we spent so many hours creating our own newspapers and writing each other mysteries to solve, and just huge wells of creativity there. And then by junior high, I spent so many weekend nights staying up late, writing a novel with my friend Jenna on her mom's Commodore 64. I don't remember what it was. It was very boxy. And yeah, so I'm a huge believer in the power of great friendships. And
What kind of books did you read as a kid?
I actually brought some with me.
Ooh, how exciting.
Okay, the first book I ever remember falling in love with, my mom would take me to the library when I was 4, and just, you know how you take 4-year-olds to the library because you just don't know what to do with them. So many hours of the day. So I would, every time she took me, make her read me this book. So it's The Stone Doll of Sister Brute by Lillian Russell Hoban. And it's just enchanting. I loved it. And it's so...
That one's completely new to me. What's it about? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so Sister Brute is a little monster, and she goes around asking each member of her family for a doll, and as typical of monsters, they're all jerks about it. And so they're like, just leave us alone, we're not even paying attention to you. And so finally her mom is like, here's a rock, just play with this. But then through her creativity, she draws a face on the rock and she dresses it up and she loves the rock. And then she meets an ugly kicking dog with hobnailed boots who wants to be loved. And so much like she wanted something to love, this mangy, gross dog who's violent to her and kicks her all the time wants to be loved. So she adopts the dog. And then by the end, her family kind of realizes that they, she goes back to her mom and complains that she's just so exhausted from carrying this heavy rock around and covered in bruises from this dog kicking her. And so her mom's like, oh, well, maybe you could love me. And so I don't know why. I just loved this book, this totally imperfect family of monsters that were not always nice to each other.
That sounds so absurd and dark and awesome. And I
like a dark children's book.
It has a Neil Gaiman vibe to it a little bit. And
just Neil Gaiman. I love Neil Gaiman. He's hilarious.
I love it. And so it's a family of monsters, and it's weird that her name is Sister Bruce or Sister
Brute, yeah,
because it almost sounds like a nun.
I know. So. Yeah.
That's awesome. So what other ones?
Okay, and then I moved on to Pippi Longstocking by Astrid Lindgren, and this is the actual copy that I read until I had it memorized, and the pages are just falling out. Loved Pippi Longstocking. She was just such a little liar, but just great, so confident. And then by junior high, I had moved on to psychological thrillers like Lois Duncan and Christopher Pike. I just couldn't get enough. I would read stacks and stacks. So.
Yes, Christopher Pike and R.L. Stine were big in my middle school, and it sounds like they're still big. And I guess the lesson there is some kids just really like the dark, weird stuff and the rebellious.
Apparently, I always did.
How did you go from being a reader who loved reading to wanting to write your own books?
Oh, okay. So I was working at a nonprofit, and it involved some traveling almost right out of college. And I realized during one of my work trips when I was staying by myself at a hotel that through some circumstances that had happened, I realized that because I looked like I was 12 and I'm just like small and cute, like I could basically get away with any kind of subterfuge. No one questioned when I told them things. And so I never did any of it, but I started kind of filing away like every situation where I got in where I was like, I could have gotten away with XYZ. And then eventually all of that kind of sparked the first novel I ever wrote, which was about a girl who goes toe to toe with the Italian mafia on her family's vacation to Rome.
I love it.
And it's awesome.
Yeah. Did anything happen with that book?
So that book got rejected over 100 times.
Yes. You gotta rack up the 100 rejections. That's
absolutely. You have to. It's your badge of courage to enter publishing. So I shelved it and I wrote something else that was really like deep and heavy and from my heart. And then I was so exhausted from writing that I just decided to write something completely that would just be fun and make me laugh. And that was Glimpsed. So.
And tell us about the day that you found out your book was going to be published.
I called my husband at work and told him, and he cried. He's a crier. I think he cried. And then after we hung up from that, I like went and vacuumed because you just still life is still life, you know, even if you're getting it published. And then my kids got home from school and we told them I got a book deal, and they're not that old. And they were just like, where's the book? And I was, well, we don't have it yet. And they're like, nah. So they were totally unimpressed because there was no book.
Did you get a phone call when it happened or an email? Did you know it was coming?
I kind of knew because we had, my agent, Kimberly and Eddie, and I had like gone on sub and gotten a few revise and resubmits and some interest. And so I had worked for a couple of months on a revision for Jessica Smith at Simon & Schuster. And so it wasn't completely out of the blue. It was something we had been kind of working on. And so when they finally came back and said, we'd like to make you an offer, I was like, yeah, it's happening.
Yay! How long were you on sub?
Not that long, actually. It was the first round of submissions. I think she submitted to like 6 to start with. And it was that first round that we got 2 revise and resubmits from, which were complete opposites. Like one of them, the advice and the things they wanted to see changed were completely opposite. So we just had to pick one and decide what direction we wanted to go and go with that. So I just really connected with Jessica Smith's ideas and her vision, and I pushed back on some things and she let me push back, which was really neat for me as far as knowing how we would work together. So yeah.
It's always tricky when you get like one set of feedback that's like, you need to change the characters, and then another one that says something like, the characters are perfect, you need to change the plot, or like, you know, 2 things that are like completely different. So how do you pick which one's the right way to go?
Yeah, well, one of the R&Rs wanted me to take out all the magic. They really loved the characters and the story, but they were like, just take out the magic and make it a regular rom-com. And there wasn't that, like, there was probably half the amount of magic in the draft that these editors saw as what's in there now. And Jessica went the other way with it and said, I really want you to lean into the fairy tale and give me more magic. And so we just kind of had to decide, we're going to take a chance. We're not seeing a lot of magical contemporary rom-com. And I don't know, my gut just told me that Jessica had it right and it was going to be
listen to your gut.
Magic.
There's an element in your book that I really like, which is when she's giving nudges to people, like her hand goes numb and then her arm goes numb. How did you come up with that idea, and how did that develop?
One of my critique partners, Mary E. Lambert, has told me before in the past that there always has to be a cost to the magic. That if there isn't if it doesn't cost the person something, then the magic kind of loses its impact. And so I went into it knowing I wanted to have some cost, or else Mary was going to call me out. So, and I just was thinking, this is a very fun light book, and I wanted it to be something silly and kind of annoying, nothing like really dark or life-threatening or, you know, messing with the elements kind of a thing. And so I just thought, it's just so annoying when your arm falls asleep or your hand falls asleep, and so I just went with it.
Brilliant. And I love that advice about having your magic cost something. You can't just like, anyway, that's important. I'm putting it in my brain for when I'm writing a fantasy right now and in revisions, and I'm like, I'm not going to steal your arm numbing idea, but the idea the idea about it costing something is, that's good. What is a misconception that you've had about publishing prior to being published that has now changed?
I think that even though maybe I knew, some things you can't know until you really experience it for yourself. Just that hurry up and wait aspect. There's these long periods of silence where you're kind of like, did you decide that we're not going to do this after all? And then, and then when they get it back to you, it's like, can you turn this around in 3 days? You know, not always, but and I was lucky because Jessica Smith was always very responsive to me, and if she told me she was going to get me something, she would. So I know other authors that don't have that same experience, so I'm definitely not complaining, but there is an element of hurry up and wait. And then I also think that I was kind of hoping with traditional publishing, like, good, I just get to write it, and then like Simon and Schuster will just make it amazing. Like they'll take it and run with it and publish, you know, publish it obviously, but publicize it and everyone will read it, and I'll just, it's not like that at all.
The author has to do a lot of the publicity.
Yeah. Well, and I think if you're a lead title, right, then they have a huge publishing budget for the lead titles, and you'll get like a book trailer and a tour and like everything. But like the lead titles are here, and then there's like the mid list, and then my book's way down below where the screen can even. So my publicity and marketing budget is like.
I will boost you. I'm reading it. I'm going to Goodreads it all over the place.
Oh, thank you.
Oh yeah, but no, I relate. You know, the thing is, like some of my favorite books are not the big books that get like make tons of publicity, but like the books that are, I'm like, why aren't more people talking about this one? Because it's amazing, right? So I firmly believe that your book will find an audience. It's your book. Tell us about it in your own words.
Okay, this is the hardest part.
I know.
So, okay. I'm gonna breathe. I'm gonna be calm. Okay, so Glimpsed is a slightly magical rom-com where Charity is a teenage fairy godmother, and she legitimately believes that it's her job to fix everybody else's life. And then she has set up one of her classmates with an epic prom date, and didn't realize that kind of left her previous prom date with in a big lurch. And so he happens to be an uber genius, and he kind of runs some algorithms about what's going on at their school and figures out that she is involved in everyone's amazing rises to popularity and sudden successes. And so he tracks her down and he insists that she needs to stop meddling with people's lives and undo this wish that she granted for his ex-girlfriend so that he can get his girl back. And so the rest of the book is them trying to do that, and her kind of realizing that she didn't have it all perfectly together and all correct, and she's been creating some unintentional fallout all along the way. So there you go. Oh, I'll tell you the tropes. Enemies to lovers.
Oh, yes.
Fake dating. What else? Oh, geeky fandom. So much geeky fandom. Because Noah, the Virginius, is just a huge Star Trek fan, and it comes into play a lot in the book. So.
What was the best revision suggestion that you got along the way?
To be honest, this was hard. You had sent me the questions, and so I was thinking through them, and it's hard because I got so much great feedback. But I have to say one of my favorite things is when Charity and Noah first meet for the first time, they get into a fight. And I don't want to spoil it. I won't tell too much about it. But in the first version, they kind of just argued and then walked away. And my critique partner, Mary Lambert, really challenged me. She's like, I want to see them just lose it. Like, I want to see how far this could go. And so I wrote that, and it was hilarious. And it's still in there. It's one of my favorite scenes in the book.
Oh, that's awesome. What's your favorite step? Is it drafting or revising?
I really like both.
You don't like both, or do you?
I love both. I love both. I love that kind of free fall creativity of drafting, and just I'm drunk on power, to be honest. Just like I can do anything I want, and can manipulate people and situations, and like, just see how far you can go with it. And so I love that. It's really fun. But I also love revising because, in real life, you never get a do-over. And when you're revising, you can find all the little gems of like, oh, she should have said that, or this could have happened, or, oh, I messed up here and I took it in the wrong direction, and we can fix it. And I love that do-over. So.
Are you a morning writer or an evening writer?
I think of myself as a morning writer, but then when I told my husband that, he was like, you wrote an entire book between the hours of 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., which is not technically the morning. And I was like, oh, that's true. And then he was like, and you write all the time in the afternoon. And so basically he called me on it and was like, no, you're an all the time writer. So
are you a perfectionist or a chaos artist?
Perfectionist. And
is it hard to, as a perfectionist, is it hard to function? Like how because as someone who just spent like 2 hours this morning looking at my first page of my manuscript, how do you get from that like nitpicky, like, let me try this sequence of words, let me try this one, and to just like let it go?
It's hard. And I mean, it's possible to just never finish a book, right? Because you can just be on one page trying to perfect it. I think as a perfectionist, we just have to get into that headspace of letting it go, and being like, no one has to see this. It's not going to be perfect the first time. But if I don't write something, then there's nothing to perfect. So just teaching myself and training ourselves to be a little less precious about our words, especially our first drafts, and trusting that we're going to be able to perfect it later, I think is really important.
And do you have a huge ego, or are you humble and demure?
I am the most humble person I know. No. I do not have a confidence problem, but I also have to say, like, when I think about the journey, there are just so many people I have to be thankful for and have contributed not only to this book, but just to me and my life and my creativity. And paid for my college, There's just so many people to thank that I feel like it's really humbling. The whole journey is really humbling.
Are you a plotter or a pantser?
I'm a little bit of both. So I usually start with a premise and at least one main character that's kind of firm in my mind, hopefully two. And then I pretty much pants the first act just based on that premise, what I know needs to happen by the break into two. And then I have to pause and plot things out. And I do like 3x5 cards, all kinds of things. But I feel like if I try to plot before that break, I don't know my characters well enough to really know what their natural choices would be. And for me, that's so important to just not have to force them to make specific choices in order to make my plot work. Because as a reader, you always can tell. You're like, what? Why did they do that? That's not who they are. So, so I pause and I plot, and then I write the rest of it. And sometimes the plot changes as I go, but usually by then I have a pretty good idea.
Was there ever a point where you feared you would never be published?
Yeah, lots of times I was pretty sure it might not be. But I guess my husband is such a great supporter, and I have great critique partners and a great group of authors. I live in Arizona, and we have an author network here that's just incredibly supportive and really treated me like an author and a professional writer before there was any proof that I was, And so I think that.
Oh, who are your dogs? I heard them earlier.
One is like a neighbor's dog, and now my dog is responding. So, I think. Anyway.
What kind of dog do you have?
I have, the one you're hearing bark is a little Chiweenie. She's like a Chihuahua Dachshund mix. She's so cute.
Oh, I think that's what mine is. I'm not sure what mine is, but it's a long. He's long, and he's definitely got Chihuahua, but he's also very long with short legs.
Yeah, might be. Now she's hiding under my chair.
And what's her name?
Her name is Skittles.
Oh, Skittles. Oh, how cute.
Hi, Skittles. You want to be in the interview? Come here.
Oh, let's see Skittles. Let's see Skittles. Oh, my goodness. Hi, Skittles. Hi, Skittles. Oh, she's so cute. Little chocolate. Yeah, my dogs are not being very social right now. They're sleeping.
What are we even talking about?
Oh, we were talking about, did you fear you would never get published? And then you.
Okay, so that really buffered it. Having a lot of people that believed in me, I feel like there were so many times when I was like, is this even going to happen? Am I just spinning my wheels? But yeah.
Yeah, something we didn't talk about earlier was the querying process. How was the querying process for you?
I would describe it like slow death by leeches. You just feel like your life is being drained out of you every day. It's just, there's nothing good about it, not one good thing about it, but you just have to not take it personally, which is so much easier to say afterwards than when you're in the thick of it. And I was lucky. I got a lot of full and partial requests on all the books I queried, but those are also the hardest, because then when you get the rejection, it's like, oh, they're not rejecting a letter. They're rejecting my actual, they actually hate me.
How long did it take you to find your agent?
So I started querying, man, timelines are hard.
Yeah.
I started querying my first book that got all the rejections, I think in the fall of 2015, I think.
Okay.
And so I queried for probably about a year on that one. And then I started querying Glimpsed in about the fall of 2017, I think. And I think with that one, it was pretty quick. Like once you have the book that's going to sell, it sells pretty quick. So in a way I queried for like 2.5 years, but in a way,
Yeah.
once I had Glimpsed ready to query, it was maybe 5 months, 4 or 5 months.
That's a really short period of time. Did you learn from any mistakes the first time around?
I would like to say I did.
Yeah, I feel like the first time I was querying, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to properly like look for agents. So I was just kind of like on Twitter, on manuscript wish list. And then when I learned about Publishers Marketplace and Query Tracker, and then I'm like, okay, now we're going to do things the right way.
Yeah. Well, I had the benefit of other authors telling me like, oh, I think before I even started querying the first time, someone said, go to Query Tracker. First thing, Query Tracker.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure everyone has heard of Query Shark.
Yeah.
So on my first query letter got accepted by Query Shark. I was chum on the Query Shark. And so, I mean, that was amazing. So I did learn a huge amount along the way as I queried that first book. And I put
a little explanation for the audience if you guys aren't familiar with Query Shark. It's a blog where you submit your query letter and it will get ripped apart.
Yeah.
And everything about it you'll get told, you'll get schooled in public for everyone to see, and then you'll have a better query letter because of it.
Yeah, it is public humiliation galore, and she literally calls you chum. Awesome, it's so helpful.
Would you ever like to be famous?
It's not on my bucket list, but I do think, if you're going to be famous, moderately author famous would be really the way to go, because you can still like grossly eat a burrito or like run to the grocery store in the same clothes you were wearing yesterday, and no one's really going to know who you are, even though you're selling a lot of books. So, yeah, I just want that freedom to go to the grocery store in yesterday's pajamas. Like, why can't I do that?
Theoretically, though, if you're famous, you will have enough money to have like Uber Eats every day, and to have your butler go to the grocery store for you.
That's true. And like a trainer and a personal shopper.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You're right.
If you could have any non-supernatural talent or ability, what would it be?
I think I would want to be bilingual or trilingual. I'm like moderately good at English and just crap at Spanish, and that's it. And like I would love to speak more languages, but I'm just at this point like not gonna do the work. So I just want someone to zap it into my brain.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. And what are you working on right now?
Well, I am working on, how much am I supposed to tell? I don't know. My thing is, it hasn't sold, and my situation's a little weird because Glimpsed got picked up by Simon Pulse. Then Simon Pulse got dissolved by Simon Schuster.
Yes, we're
and
aware.
Glimpsed got moved to, so I have like early proofs of it with Simon Pulse on it. I'm like, I wonder if these will be worth something someday. And then, so then I went under Simon & Schuster books for young readers, but my editor went to Aladdin, which is only middle grade. So she can't acquire my next book. And then my agent, Kim, has a serious family situation where she's basically not able to work right now for an indefinite period of time. So I have no way to sell the next book, as well as no one to acquire the next book.
Wow, I'm going to cut all this out because you probably don't want it. Or do you want this all on you don't care? Okay. It's a 2020 story.
It's a 2020 story. But fine. I'm excited about the book. I think I am confident that anyone who loves Glimpsed will love the one I'm writing now. And
So this is going to be like a requeering sort of.
I don't think so. I mean, I have my contract with Simon and Schuster has a whatchamahoodle, an option. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they are obliged to look at it, and we're obliged to let them see it. It's just more of a timing thing, and I guess for me, because I loved working with Jessica Smith so much, it's just such an unknown. I have no idea what editor will be looking at book 2 and if they will have the same connection with me and my work that Jessica did. So, but I trust. I just feel like good things are going to happen, and whatever, it's going to work out one way or another. But I don't know what the timeline will be.
Yeah. Can you give us a hint of like the genre of it?
Yeah. So I'm sticking with a very similar genre because I feel like I recognize that if people loved Glimpsed, they're going to pick up the next book with I've kind of made some promises of what a G.F. Miller book will be like. And so I don't take that lightly. I feel like people are giving me hours of their life reading this book, and I don't want to disappoint. So it's going to be a rom-com, and there's going to be a little magic, but it's fun. So basically the main character lives on a farm, and her family was like the last holdout that did not sell their property to a developer who made like mini mansions all around them. So so the school she goes to, everyone else at her school lives in these mini mansions, and they all just hate her and her family and their janky little farm that is like bringing down the property values of the entire neighborhood. And so she gets a lot of flack at school. But her, the women in her family are like garden witches. And so she accidentally on purpose curses some apples and takes them to school. And so people's lives get really zany, messed up. And she feels pretty bad about it. So then she's trying to she kind of hates them, but she also kind of doesn't want to live with this on her conscience forever. And yeah,
I like that. I really like the idea of the kind of little farm that like didn't get bought up by the developer, because I kind of grew up in like an area that was like brand new houses and also right next to like the rural places that had horses and stuff. So is that kind of based on a similar like experience that you had growing up?
It wasn't based on a personal experience, but because in Arizona, there's a lot of really newer developments and neighborhoods that have sprung up in the past 5 or 10 or 20 years. And yeah, so you do occasionally see that where there'll be a little you pick farm just in the middle of what is this doing here? Or just this really nice neighborhood, and then a little ranch house with horses next to it right in the middle of everything. So you see it. And so it just kind of sparked, I wonder what life might be like for that kid.
I really like it. That's a great idea. Awesome. You guys, everyone check out Glimpsed. It's out January 5th. I've put all the buy links down below and the links to Goodreads and also the links to G.F. Miller's website and Twitter. Thank you so much for being on the channel.
Thank you, Carly. It was so fun to talk with you.